And I think Kingston's also like the sort of perfect size. 'Cause I think sort of the sort of mid-sized cities are great for these sorts of events. Film festivals at their best are very, very social occasions. It's kind of connecting, filmmakers with their audiences, but also just sort of film lovers to each other. And even in Kingston, knowing that we have great comedy events and music events and other chats that, kind of mixing it all up. So it just is a really great opportunity for all kinds of people with different interests to engage with each other.
From NCPR, welcome to Northwards. People, ideas, and conversations from and about Northern New York, Vermont, and beyond. I'm Mitch Tyke.
Support for the Northwards podcast comes from the J.C. Steiniger and M.E. McDonald Charitable Fund at Adirondack Foundation in support of the Adirondack Foundation, building stronger Adirondack communities.
Hey, Ethan.
Hey, Mitch.
Ethan Chancey is with us in the studio now, as he always is. He's our producer here on Northwards, and he joins us at the beginning of the episode, and he also joins us at the end of the episode for a few seconds as well, a few precious seconds. Ethan, you are a film buff, right?
I would say that I am a film buff. Yeah, I try to watch at least one movie every single day.
I am not the same way, but I kind of look at life as its own very special movie.
Well,
but
that's delightful.
do you have a favorite movie of all time?
I definitely do. Yeah, my favorite movie of all time is No Country for Old Men by the Coen brothers, 2007 movie. Did they win the Academy Award for that? I think they did.
They did, yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's just like the perfect distillation of everything that they do. I really love crime movies. They're excellent at that. It's super funny. It's equal parts dramatic. It's really dry, which is perfect for the landscape that the movie is set in. Yeah, it's my all-time favorite. What about you?
I have to say that my favorite movie of all time is Diner, Barry Levinson movie from 1982 with a bunch of people who would go on to be kind of stars in their own right. It was a really early Barry Levinson film.
Isn't Barry Levinson a collaborator with the Coen brothers?
I don't know that he is.
I'm stumping you. It doesn't matter. Go ahead.
Anyway, it's a very talky movie. In a strange way, it's a coming of age, but they're like people who should have come of age already.
Right.
And it's really smartly written. It has some people in it like Paul Reiser is in it, Ellen Barkin is in it, Mickey Rourke, a number of people who really went on to some big things in their film career, and very much an ensemble film. And I get something new from it every time I watch it.
I know that Paul Reiser is like a comedian, and that's how he got his start, but I can only think about him as like the scumbag guy in Aliens when he's working for the corporation and he's the reason everybody dies. Anyway.
Well, there's a whole other generation that knows him for Stranger Things, too.
Paul Reiser in Stranger Things?
This is what I understand. I've never seen Stranger Things.
What? You're right. He is in Stranger Things.
Oh
my
God.
He's the doctor. Is he he's not really a scumbag in that. He's okay. Sort of.
I have
But
no
you think
idea.
he's a scumbag. You've never seen it.
Never seen Stranger Things.
Have you never seen Stranger Things?
Because I usually leave the room when my children are watching it.
It's fun. I mean, it's not I don't know. I'm biased. I'm a huge Stephen King fan.
Real life is disturbing enough already. Thank you. Anyway, so Diner is, if not the best or my favorite, certainly among my favorites of all time. I tend to like movies where not a lot of like action happens, even though things happen. The other film that always comes to mind, though, is one that's totally under the radar. I saw it at a film festival in Flagstaff, Arizona, that only existed for a couple of years. It was called the Flagstaff International Film Festival, or FIF. As I had a chance to interview the director and producer, and they also starred in this film. It was called Chillicothe, and very much more coming of age as the characters, maybe actually similar to Diner. There were characters like at the beginning of adulthood, but in this case, where Diner was made in 1982 and took place in 1959, Chillicothe was very much of its time and was very much a Generation X cast and script, and so felt very true in the kind of struggling early career, we're selling our CDs to be able to pay the phone bill sort of way. And
well, what's it called?
It's called Chillicothe.
I've never heard of it.
Nobody. I don't know that the film went anywhere after the film festival circuit. I actually managed to secure a copy on VHS.
Oh wow! Can you even play it anymore? Do you have a VCR?
I do have one of those VCR DVD players, just because we have so many. It seemed frankly, my Jeopardy appearances are still on VHS.
Okay, well, okay, I can see why you'd still invest in a VCR then. Yeah, I wouldn't want to lose that.
And I'm always kind and rewind.
Good.
But it speaks to the kind of stuff that you can see when you go to a film festival.
When we were talking about our favorite movies earlier, I was like, did the Coen brothers get started at film festivals? And I discovered that, yeah, they premiered their first movie, Blood Simple, at Sundance. And obviously that propelled them to, like, are they a household name? I think so, as far as like directing brothers go. But
As much as the Farrelly brothers?
The who?
Aren't the Farrelly brothers directors?
The Farrelly brothers.
It's Farrelly?
I don't know. I say Farrelly.
Oh.
Farrelly makes it sound like they're mobsters or something. Like they're going to come beat you up because you didn't pay a bill that
It's a fairly short list of directing brothers anyway.
Anyway, yeah. So yeah, they did get their start because of the film festival circuit. I know that they took it from Sundance to Toronto International Film Festival and more. And of course, they have become the stars of directing that they are. And, so many, we talked about earlier, like a Marvel movie doesn't need to run the film festival circuit because it's going to be premiering on screens all over the nation. But for small independent filmmakers, film festivals are the way that they've got to get into the industry because, scouts from different movie studios appear there and they decide if they're going to spend money on this movie and give this director a chance. And then they secure distribution from there on. And yeah, without a film festival, especially back in like the 80s and 90s, how would a filmmaker get on the national stage? They just wouldn't.
Right, they'd be carrying around their VHS copies of films under their long pea coats and handing them out to unsuspecting people outside the multiplex.
There is precedence for that because I know that George Romero, who was an independent filmmaker, was bringing his movie or his partner was bringing Night of the Living Dead to independent theaters all over the nation to try to screen it. And, I don't think anybody really wants to do that. So thank God there are film festivals that can give these filmmakers a chance.
Well, so you mentioned the Coen brothers and Blood Simple going from Sundance to the Toronto International Film Festival. The guy we hear from on Northwards today is actually a programmer for the Toronto International Film Festival.
Oh, cool.
He programs specifically the Canadian films, but more importantly, he is the lead programmer for the Kingston Canadian Film Festival, which is celebrating its 25th anniversary. Kingston, for being kind of a mid-sized city, has this outside influence, certainly on the Canadian art scene. Big rock bands from Kingston, lots of filmmakers come out of Kingston, lots of acting talent from Canada starts in Kingston. I think Dan Aykroyd is from Kingston originally.
Oh, yeah.
So this film festival has been around for 25 years, screens exclusively Canadian films. This year, they're kind of marrying the music theme with the movie theme and having a special emphasis on music at the film festival. It gets underway a little bit later on this month, late in February, and I had a chance to chat. The guy's name is Jason Anderson, and he joined us on the line actually from Toronto. Jason Anderson, welcome to Northwards.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a great chance to spread the word about the festival.
Well, so let's. This is the 25th anniversary of the festival. What can you tell us about what was going on 25 years ago that someone decided, hey, we need to have a film festival in Kingston?
Well, I think that I'm so grateful they did, and some of the stories I've heard from people like the founder Alex Jensen have been really kind of inspirational because it really was just a bunch of young film lovers, Queens film people in the dawn of the new millennium, who just love Canadian film and saw this as an opportunity to kind of just showcase stuff in a way that Canadian cinemas rarely had the chance to. Like we have this really, really rich tradition of filmmaking in Canada, all kinds of work. And it's just like, because we live in a small country that is overshadowed by a larger one to the south, we've heard a lot about lately. It just has always been a struggle. It's always been a challenge for us to really access our own culture and celebrate our own culture. And I think this has just been, I think it's a testament to, the strength of and the perseverance of Canadian cinema that the festival's lasted 25 years and that we never ever lack for things to play. It's never a struggle. I mean, there's always so much great stuff that we run out of room to play even. So that's just it. It's amazing to see over the 15 or so years of my tenure with the festival to feel like it has been sort of going from strength to strength, and year after year seeing the audience in Kingston just really embrace it and come out and just really engage. I mean, people are thought there's a hunger for it. I think that's kind of what was recognized from the get-go and has sort of continued on and increased over the years.
And so from the get go, it was always designed to be spotlighting Canadian films.
Yeah, and I think that was it. Like I think that was kind of the niche. I mean, certainly, and it kind of remains a niche that isn't very well kind of explored or celebrated. I mean, I mean, tons of great film festivals across the country with all kinds of focus and different sort of orientations and for serving various communities. And I think that I think there's certainly some really amazing events like the National Canadian Film Day and other festivals that really do put Canadian film front and center. And I think this was just an opportunity to do that in a kind of extended form and really, and actually really kind of get a lot of those filmmakers into town and to visit and to really engage with, where getting engaged at a festival too, where they're not kind of the sidebar or the sort of like, well, we got these prize winners from all these European festivals or Sundance or whatever, and we'll also do some Canadian films, just to have a place where it really is the absolute focus and the reason we're all here.
Is there something about the size of Kingston that makes it a good place to do something like this? It feels like there's a certain amount of accessibility that might be. I know you're also doing Canadian programming at the Toronto International Film Festival, but I would imagine that a festival even as big as it is in Toronto might still be swallowed up by the metropolis that is the city. Is there something about Kingston that makes this work especially well?
Yeah, and that's something I've been to lots of film festivals and worked at film festivals all over the place, and it really makes a big difference when you feel like the festival has like a presence and like a footprint, and that can happen. It certainly happens in Toronto, but I've certainly been to festivals like in New York or London, England, where it's like you don't know it's there. It's just kind of swallowed up in the chaos. And I think Kingston's also like the sort of perfect size. 'Cause I think sort of the sort of mid-sized cities are great for these sorts of events, and especially a place that has such a vibrant downtown and has kind of a real center where people are coming out and want to be. And because I've also been to plenty of film festivals that are film festivals by name, but they're essentially in like a suburban multiplex, and there's not a lot of ambiance, and there's not a lot of places for people to kind of go and gather and chat and connect when they're actually not in the screenings. Whereas, this is we kind of own Princess during the festival, and it's a great feeling to feel like there's all these people out to enjoy it and to kind of find each other, because I think that film festivals at their best are very social occasions, and it's kind of connecting filmmakers with their audiences, but also just sort of film lovers to each other. And even in Kingston, knowing that we have great comedy events and music events and other chats that kind of mixing it all up, so it just is a really great opportunity for all kinds of people with different interests to engage with each other.
Connecting filmmakers with audiences. Along those lines, what has the festival meant over those 25 years to the Canadian filmmaking community?
I think one thing I always get feedback from filmmakers, when I see them when they're at Kingston, when after Kingston, I mean, they're just kind of knocked out by the hospitality of the whole city, the kind of the warmth, the interest they're shown. Like I think that the festival, I mean, that's something I think was clear to me even when I joined the festival in the late 2000s, was that there really was this emphasis from the team on ensuring the visitors had this great experience and really felt like they were well taken care of, and that their work was being presented in a way that was really thoughtful and warm, and it's continued. And I think to see that kind of continue to be this really big emphasis is so gratifying because that's like when you hear the other kinds of stories from filmmakers of them getting like abandoned on train station platforms or have empty screenings or it's like, oh, that's not, it doesn't feel good. I mean, and that's, and again, like as someone who's done a lot of the Q&As and introductions, and I mean, I'm just always so grateful to the audience in Kingston because they are, really, really up for it, and they really, they pack the houses and they ask the questions and they come up and talk to the filmmakers and shake hands and just really express stuff, which is, I think, it's never a small thing to an artist, filmmaker, whoever, to have that kind of one-to-one response.
Well, it's a lot different than doing an Ask Me Anything on Reddit or something.
Oh yeah, like it really isn't comparable. Like I think just to see like it's something I love, love, love to see is seeing a filmmaker and have a sort of cluster of people at the end of a screening or in the hallway afterwards, and just people just wanting to sort of say what something meant to them and how it connected, and it's just it is very much nourishment for the soul.
What about on a larger scale, though? Like, is there a footprint that expands from the experience that a filmmaker has by being able to access an audience in Kingston? Does it enable them to it's not the same as Sundance or Cannes or whatever, but is there some greater significance to the filmmaking community to have this experience in Kingston moving forward?
Well, I think that's even just to see them like just on that point about like filmmakers really don't get that much of a chance to see each other, and that's something I think that really comes in. I've had so many great experiences at the festival of just sort of seeing, a room full of film people getting to socialize and see each other's work. And certainly that's something, filmmakers come and they actually go to each other's movies, which is always heartening as well. But no, I think that, I think anyone making art in Canada or just about anywhere, it can be pretty isolating, and you do kind of maybe stick to your own. And so to actually have occasions where you can really kind of come together as a community and kind of have, sort of, warm space, neutral ground, and also as opposed to somewhere like the Toronto Festival where it really is like perpetual FOMO because there is like a million things happening at once and everyone feels like they are kind of getting torn in a bunch of different directions to really kind of have this, 5 or 5 days of just sort of being together and there's still a lot going on, but it isn't quite as overwhelming and I think that opportunity for filmmakers to feel like they are part of this community that kind of gets created every year here is a real special one for them.
What about what the festival has meant to Kingston? I mean, this is a place, as you say, that has a vibrant downtown already and a lively art scene, but late February, early March, not necessarily always the busy season in a place like Kingston.
It's actually even like this winter, especially because it's been a while since we had like a proper, Ontario Canadian winter. But it's also reassuring because it means that at least it's not just raining all day. But yeah, like, and I think that it's something I think it's always one thing I like about events at this time of year is it does sort of feel like, oh, we're kind of coming out of hibernation. Like it's not all. It's not going to be like this forever, and there is sort of something to look forward to. And I mean, the festival's also really always been, really well timed in terms of the sort of film, cycle because we're really at the, a lot of the films that we're playing are actually just, kind of maybe they've played festivals before, but they're often just sort of coming into wider circulation because of the Canadian Screen Awards being around the corner and other events where they're kind of like this is kind of when there is a really good push for Canadian cinema at this time of year and I think that's it's all these things that kind of make people sort of feel like okay, well, we have something to look forward to. It's not the days are getting longer again. We can come out of our homes even if it is still rather formidable weather-wise.
And it's still going to be a little while before we're sitting outside and watching a ball game or something, but at least we can go between our car and the movie theater.
Yeah, and I think like culturally a lot of the I think that's sort of a thing that you see in lots of places where like in these sort of cultural events, you still want them. I mean, you kind of have them when the weather is maybe not perfect, so people actually want to be indoors, but you also want to have it kind of on the cusp. You kind of want it in that sort of nice little pocket between the off season and the on season. So you just want to land it right. I think that we've always done a really good job of that, and you can see it just because we have so many sellouts and so many sort of so much buzz and so many people out. So it's just like, people are again sort of hungry to be out of the house and seeing people and seeing movies.
Well, so let's look ahead to this year, which I gather is kind of the film scene meets the music scene, right?
Yeah, I love the fact that we kind of have this somewhat sort of elastic purview where we can kind of have music events, comedy events, sort of chats. We got there's a Murdoch Mysteries chat, Carolyn Taylor from Baroness von Sketch. It's like there's going to be, but everything kind of connects back, and I think that's kind of part of the art scene in Canada is that I think everyone does, a lot of people do a little bit of everything, and I think that's kind of the festival reflects that too. But yeah, like, it's great because it's always, I think in the last many years we've had all these a lot of fantastic music documentaries, and the chance to sort of have that sort of spill over into the programming. We've always been thrilled to have that element. And sure enough, this year we got some really big events that are all kind of music themed, and we have like one of our big closer, which is this going to be an afternoon with Blue Rodeo. Jim Cuddy and Greg Keeler coming out to celebrate their this terrific documentary about their career called Lost Together. So that's really exciting. And then to have Cuddy and Keeler is incredible. I think people are obviously really stoked about that. And then also like to celebrate, and also a chance to celebrate maybe the most Kingstonian music / TV event of the last year, which was the Tragically Hip No Dress Rehearsal documentary series, and having Mike Downey and some of his team members out for kind of a presentation of hip related material and outtakes from the series. I mean, that was something we just had to do given the impact that series had, and how much it celebrated the city. It was another perfect sort of 25th anniversary thing. And yeah, there's also, I mean, we're excited. I think we're going to it looks like we'll have a couple of Broken Social scenesters out for the presentation of It's Gonna Break, which is a terrific sort of look at their early years from the sort of, from a very insider view of the Broken Social scene. And so this is like, I think it's always been something that we emphasize, having this sort of music crossover. There's a Dwayne Gretzky show too. There's sort of this stuff that kind of we've always had music under the umbrella of the festival, and I think this year is just like, I think that to have really amazing events kind of really sort of shores it up. But I think there's always, I mean, the best movies are always have great soundtracks anyway. So.
Well, so what do you get out of doing this? I mean, give us a sense for what the life of a programmer is like. I mean, it almost feels like, to an outsider, it must be like a kid in a candy shop.
I definitely, I have, my own personal mantras when things might seem a little hard. I always sort of after, I always say, I'm not working in a coal mine. There are much harder jobs. And I mean, but it's an interesting gig, and I'm very, very happy to have kind of fallen into it, after I started off as a critic and a journalist, and actually, and the KCFF was my first programming gig back in the, late 2000s. I was so happy to be brought on, and that has sort of become my main career. And it is just like, it's great. And I think the one thing, I think most of all is just really, and is feeling just so grateful to share stuff, just to share the stuff that's exciting or impactful or moving or exhilarating, and just to sort of like all those reactions that I'm going to have to all this work that I get to see, and to sort of feel like, wow, I just want to celebrate this thing and showcase this thing and bring it to people, and give it the attention it deserves, and whatever I can do to help that. I mean, I think that to facilitate that sort of discovery is really the best part of what I do, and hopefully justifies the fading eyesight and the long days of sort of screenings, and staring at things on screens. But I mean, it's again, it's great. But of course, like anything else, it's sort of like there are days where you're like, maybe I don't need to. Maybe I can read a book today.
Do you think? I mean, do you bring a critic's eye to programming?
Certainly. I mean, I think that but it's again sort of different. Like I think that I mean, one thing I'm very conscious of as a programmer that, and I think to an extent was as a critic too, was just sort of thinking about, is this, what does an audience, you know, want from this? What is the audience for this thing? Am I in that audience? Am I not in that audience? And sort of trying to have an understanding of what what the work, kind of who it's for, or who it could be for if it's maybe a couple of different audiences at the same time. So I think that's something I'm always conscious of is like, okay, how is this gonna is this connect? Is this gonna sort of enlighten and satisfy and move, the potential audience for this thing? And I think that's something I'm always, happy to sort of find, especially happy to find movies that maybe are surprising and kind of mix up an audience, I mean, as opposed to ones that maybe are like, well, this is okay, but I can sort of see this as I know maybe five people who get, the most out of this, as opposed to something that, that is gonna reach people in ways that maybe would surprise themselves. And so I think that's something I'm always conscious of is what's the audience for this, and are they going to get what they need and what the artist intends. And what's thrilling is how broad it can be. We've got comedies and documentaries and music films and first features and deep in career features, and ones on big scales and little scales, and ones with stars, and ones with unknowns, and you just you know that that's something really it's exciting over a festival program, is that you can sort of hit lots of different sort of nodes and pockets, and surprise people in all kinds of different ways.
At the same time, do you sit in the back of the theater sometimes and watch audience reactions and think start getting nervous? Like, I hope people get this the way I thought they would get this.
Yeah, certainly. And there's, I think, time and again, there have been films that I was like, are they gonna get this? Do I get this? And to see that sort of thing pop in a room and people to sort of, get to it, respond is so gratifying. Because I mean, part of the thing is a lot of the time I'm not able to see a film with a group of people. It's me by my lonesome somewhere, and it's something kind of alchemical when it's in a room, and especially if it's something with a big emotion or weird or whatever, like people kind of feed off each other's reactions, like like laughter in a crowd, or tension in a horror movie or whatever. Like, I think that it is a very communal, collective experience at the best of times, and something I kind of have to imagine, and lots of programmers have to sort of imagine, like, oh, what's this going to be like in a big room? And almost everything is way better in a big room full of people.
Is there one particular highlight that you are especially looking forward to this year?
Oh gosh, there were so many like films that I'm really excited about, like especially like some of the first features, because I mean I worked a long time doing short films at the Toronto Festival, so there's always these really like terrific emerging filmmakers who I had a chance to play their shorts, and I'm so excited that they come back with features. People like Eva Thomas, who's a co-director. She'll be here with her first film, Aberdeen, and she's an amazing talent. She's like kind of, going to be back with many more films soon. Or, Hunting Days, Jour de Chasse from Quebec by Yannick Blanc, and she's part of an amazing team of sort of new talent that are doing great things in Quebec. And The Heirloom by Ben Petrie, and Ben Petrie with his partner Grace Glowicki. They just premiered their Grace's new film at Sundance. I mean, they're just kind of this dynamo, and again, these sort of new talents, which are really great to showcase alongside people like Anne-Marie Fleming from BC, who's a really exquisite new movie called Can I Get a Witness, with starring Sandra Oh, and she's made a bunch of movies with Sandra before. So really excited about that. And just there really is just this kind of blend of new and old, and I can't call them old, new and established. How's that? So
Well,
that's something I'm always excited about, to sort of have that again, like sort of a kind of a diversity of experience there too.
and it must be something to have the opportunity to see people at the beginning or the very early portion of their career, and maybe present a first film at Kingston and see them go on to these great things down the road.
Oh yeah, and that's I think that's really, I mean, certainly lots of filmmakers we've had the chance to play a couple of times, and always really excited to have them back. And then like and certainly there's some of the I think like I was just thinking about trying to think of, just thinking about Matthew Rankin's Universal Language, which we're really happy to have the Kingston premiere for, and he's the sort of epitome of a sort of filmmaker who's kind of done amazing sort of shorts and a great first feature, and to sort of see someone like Matthew kind of reach a point where it's like he's getting to be a big deal, and that was Canada's made the shortlist for the international feature category at the Oscars and should have gotten nominated. Not quite. But I mean, it's again, like I think these sort of talents, and he's a great example of the sort of talents that can be kind of fostered in Canada. They are people who start kind of idiosyncratic and unique, and they get to stay that way, ideally, and they don't get all that sort of those sort of particularities kind of ironed out of their styles and their movies, because they have to become more widely palatable. They can kind of stay weird.
They can preserve their dynamic range.
Yes.
Well, Jason Anderson, congratulations to you and the film festival on 25 years. We'll hope for cooperative weather and a really wonderful festival this year.
Amazing. Thanks so much for your help.
Jason Anderson is the programmer for the Kingston Canadian Film Festival, which gets underway later in February. There's a link to the whole schedule and much more about the Kingston Canadian Film Festival at ncpr.org/northwards. Producer Ethan Shanty is back in the studio with us. Ethan, do you have any film festival memories?
Yeah, you mentioned Dan Aykroyd earlier, and it reminded me that I knew that I had attended the St. Lawrence International Film Festival for its inaugural year. I think it stuck around for one more after that. But one of their highlights of the program was a screening of The Blues Brothers with Dan Aykroyd in attendance. And that was the only time I had never seen The Blues Brothers before. And so
Sacrilege.
I know. And so, but what better way to see it for the first time than in a packed theater with Dan Aykroyd in attendance with you? And he gave he did an interview beforehand, and then afterward there was this big reception. I forget, it was in this museum, and it was just
where was this film festival?
It was in Brockville, I think, or it was just over the border. Where was it in Kemptville? Somewhere just over the border.
Kemptville must be very neat, because otherwise it'd be called Unkemptville.
That's what I mentioned to them, and they told me to turn right around at the border. So after the screening of the movie, Dan Aykroyd's blues band played in the lobby, his Crystal Skull vodka was like on tap, like for free. And, unfortunately, I had to drive, so I only sampled a sip. But it was a really cool and unique experience. I was as far away from Dan Aykroyd as I am far away from you, and I realized like how much I want to attend more film festivals in the future, because I know that it's not just screenings. Like, they do cool stuff like that all the time. But yeah, it was such a surreal experience to watch this seminal movie and then see the guy perform in his band afterward. It was very sick.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't have any memories of film festivals that are nearly that interesting.
Oh, okay.
I will say.
Did you rub elbows with any famous people or anything?
You know what? So, I lived in Milwaukee for many years before I moved here for this job, among other jobs like running the station where we produce this. But we had a fairly substantial film festival called the Milwaukee Film Festival.
Okay.
And I would occasionally host Q&As either after a film screening or with filmmakers and producers.
Yeah.
And sadly, the one abiding memory I have of doing something like that was they had me in to do a Q&A about sports movies.
Oh, okay. Well, that's right up your alley.
Totally right up my alley. Unfortunately, they scheduled this Q&A at exactly the moment that there was a big football game between the University of Wisconsin and, I don't know, Michigan or somebody. And also, I feel like the Brewers were playing baseball. Anyway, nobody showed up.
Right.
And we did the entire Q&A on a couple of couches for the cameras that the film festival had.
Okay.
And actually, it was a really interesting conversation that, as far as I know, nobody got to see.
Jeez. That reminds me of one of the last tours I went on. One of the first days we played on this tour was in Buffalo, and it was scheduled for the opening game of the season for the Buffalo Bills. And I was just like, the person who scheduled this has to be fired.
It's like the scene in Spinal Tap where they show up for a record signing at this record store and nobody's there.
Right. Anyway,
Yeah. Check out the Kingston Canadian Film Festival if you don't want to make it across the border for that, or you just don't have time to attend. There's also a big film festival that takes place in Lake Placid every year. Lots of film festivals out there. I can't recommend the experience highly enough, and it sounds like neither can you, Ethan.
Yeah, it's great.
Ethan Shanty is with us in the studio, as he always is, to read the closing credits now.
Northwards is an NCPR podcast production. The show is written, produced, and edited by Mitch Tyke with digital production supervision by me. I'm Ethan Shanty. Our theme music is by the Wickmore Jazz Trio of Plattsburgh. To find more conversations and support this show, visit ncpr.org/northwards. This is NCPR, North Country Public Radio.